Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adult Child of Dysfunction. Today, we have with us Kate Champion. She's an author, therapist, and a constantly curious human who has 2 decades of lived experience helping, supporting, and inspiring people to craft healthy, heart-centered lives. I love that quote right there, a constantly curious human. We're going to talk more about that for sure. She loves to hike and backpack, and she has a very strong connection to the natural world. She's also the author of two best-selling books, Never Too Late and You Are Limitless. And she's going to tell us a little bit more about that. And she started some pocket guides and she's got all kinds of stuff, but we'll let her explain that. But through her books, her clinical practice, her online communities, events, and her podcast, Living Big Mindfully, she has served thousands of people. Welcome, Kate.
Tammy, it's so good to see you again. Thank you so much.
I know. I loved our first conversation where I was on yours, and I can't wait for the whole thing to come together. But so tell everybody a little bit about kind of how you got started doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I am a therapist. I've been a therapist for 2+ decades. I work with mental health and I work with addiction, mostly now early recovery. And, that career has evolved over time. I've worked with kids and adults and all kinds of stuff. But I'm a late bloomer. So I started everything kind of late in life. I joke, I've done everything kind of backwards. So it didn't start my really formal education until late 20s, and then did my master's degree and kind of took it all from there. And now I'm in private practice and love what I do. I feel so fortunate to have landed into something that I really love and enjoy. But like everything, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. I don't know how much you want about my lived experience and background and childhood. I am a child of adult child of dysfunction, so I fit the label. Fit the label, and I've worked through a lot of my crap because of that. And I'm an open book. I'm happy to share.
Well, that's perfect. And honestly, with this podcast being Adult Child of Dysfunction, I feel like we all have dysfunction in our lives. And I just like to have guests on here, such as yourself, that went through the process of dealing with it instead of just staying stuck and staying unhappy and staying traumatized their whole lives. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to offer tips, tricks, and whatever, a wealth of knowledge from other people, especially on how they dealt with those kind of things. And I love that you brought the fact that it is Mental Health Awareness Month. I mean, you reminded me of that again today. And so let's talk about what you do in that regard, like what you want to share with us.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. I'm smiling. I put a post on Instagram this morning. I'm just turned 61. So I go, this is not off topic, I promise. I go to the doctors, annually, because I have had some rough health challenges. I've had autoimmune disease. I've had kind of some cancer. I had to get out of my eye. I've had, it hasn't been great. And I think that is because of the childhood trauma and, all the childhood experiences. So I posted this morning. I said, in my 20s, I was a train wreck. In my 30s, I, had to battle that autoimmune disease. In the 40s, I dealt with the cancer and all of that. In my 50s, that was the decade where I really dealt with the internal stuff, right? The grief, the loss, the trauma, really did the internal work. Still doing it. It's a lifelong process. And now in my 60s, I feel like I'm getting to reap the benefits, right? Because I've got great blood work and I'm super healthy and I have energy and I'm creative and I'm just really living a life I just beyond my wildest dreams, really, 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 really. So that's been the progression. And I think the icing on the cake for me has been that internal journey, right? Dealing with the wounds, dealing with the loss, dealing with the sadness. And yes, unpacking some of that for sure.
Oh, I bet. And you said the autoimmune, and immediately that clicks with me because so many people that went through childhood. I mean, we talk about that book, The Body Keeps Score, and how everything is stored in your body. And so much of it is fibromyalgia and lupus and all of these autoimmune things. And it's literally, I feel like it's like all these little demons inside of you. And if you could just get them out,
Yeah.
your body will function the way it was meant to do.
Yeah. And I see it all as they're all blocks, like they're little blocks that are blocking, right? They're blocking joy, they're blocking creativity, they're blocking, connection with the natural world. They're blocking kind of um, spirituality, whatever that means for you. I mean, they really, holding that trauma and not dealing with the crap really limits us. Really, really, really. It keeps us stuck. It keeps us heavy, right? I work a lot with those things now, and I'll see a new person, they'll come in and they've got this kind of what I call this kind of shame hunch, right? They've got this little kind of physical collapse, and their shoulders are caved in a bit. And the first thing we do is take a couple of breaths and like, okay, let's get that body open. Let's get those shoulders back. And I explain the shame response. I talk about asking them to connect. What's happening in the body? What are you feeling? And then when they're kind of open and then they're more kind of upright, how does that feel? And really helping people get into the body, right? I mean, we can do all the reps, we can eat all the kale in the world, but if we're not taking care of that internal stuff, we're just not living to our full potential.
Not at all. Talk a little bit more about, because I love you. I love that, the shame. Talk about more about the shame hunch, because I've heard it called a couple different things, but I love that. And
Yeah.
about how the importance of opening it up and where it comes from, like where it came from with you. I mean, in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. So the shame hunch is not the technical term, right? The technical term is something like collapse, right? It's a collapse, right? And if I don't know who's ever watching you kind of, your shoulders are caved in a little bit. They're a little hunch, and there's a little there's just this little collapse. And you can almost, if you close your eyes, you can almost feel that little child that's been scolded, or they've been hit, or they've been just shamed. And you can literally see kids where when they've been shamed and they've taken on the shame. You can literally see the little heads drop and the little shoulders come in, and you can just feel the shame like dripping through their little systems. And we all have some kind of version of that. And then again, I'm not a parent blamer by any chance, but we all have some. We can't get through parents and school and sports and friends and all the childhood stuff, all the systems, without kind of some shame. And sometimes we can kind of brush it off, we can live with it, we can move through. And sometimes shame gets stuck, right? And when we see adults with kind of stuck shame, then we can often connect with that little kind of collapse. And it's unconscious, right? They're not aware. And it's not until you say, hey, I'm noticing your body, hey, I'm noticing this, and then you give them some tools and strategies to correct that a little bit. That can be, just that shift can be really powerful. Really powerful.
Well, it's like they talk about the Superman or the Superwoman pose, where you're just opening up your whole chest and you're standing there like this, and just the confidence that it gives you just to stand tall. And like you said, so many of us, and I can remember you were taught not to look people in the eye, so you're naturally, your whole body is just kind of down and inward. And it you can definitely, I just see a lot of people, and same thing when you go Zoom with someone and then they're like, how are you feeling today? And it's like, yeah, no, like you said, the first thing you do is like, get up, like open it up, because you are kind of defeated. It's just like, it's like I picture, you're up at bat and you go to swing the ball and you miss for the third time. And then instantly what happens? Your head drops, your shoulders drop, and you walk like this. But to walk like that your whole life, like people, it's sad. Like, that's why, we talk to people and say, you don't have to, you can talk about some of the ways that you can overcome that, just in couple quick exercises.
Yeah. So one of the ways, and I just want to add one more thing to that. So that kid with the bat and he misses the ball and he walks away. So it's not just the physical response. Then the thoughts start, right? Oh my gosh, I'm a loser. Oh my gosh, I suck. Oh my gosh, rah, 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 right? So that compounds the shame thing. And then all those things roll up and they become this unconscious habit, right? And then again, like you said, you get into adulthood and you're still carrying all that stuff around. So what can you do? So there's a couple of things. So first of all, I actually love Amy Cuddy's work. You referenced Amy Cuddy, right? She's done a lot of research with regard to kind of faking it till you make it. And I know some people don't like that terms, but I have to tell you, I've been working with women for a long time, and I encourage them, right? That power pose, shoulders back, the spine is a little upright, the head is high, the eye contact is like straight ahead, right? And they're breathing into the core, right? Not the shallow breaths up here, but they're really breathing into the core. And I really have them literally feel the power, and it's a bottom up, right? It comes up from the body, and that can be, if you can hold it, if you can practice it, that can be a really powerful pose, if you like, when you go into a meeting or you go into a difficult conversation, or you are meeting some people for the first time, right? You can take a breath, kind of stay grounded and just hold that pose. That can be really, really powerful. That's one thing. And the second thing, we've got to be dealing with the thoughts, right? We've got to be working, and that self-awareness, what I call kind of that emotional fitness, part of that is self-awareness. We've got to start to see our thoughts, right? There's no such thing as a neutral thought. Our thoughts are either shitty and unhelpful or super helpful, right? And getting us to where we go. I mean, there's no such thing as a benign, neutral thought. So we have to really understand our thinking, and then we can begin to talk about beliefs and kind of connecting all the dots.
So yeah, so just being aware. So like just going back to the person with the baseball, I know that's just kind of a quick visual, but you can literally do that test on yourself sometimes, and just picture being aware of how you're sitting. And when somebody comes at you and something confrontational, what do you do? Does your head go down more, or do you stand up and attack it, and stand up and have and open yourself up? Because we spend our lives breathing incorrectly. We spend our lives doing when you're in that stress response mode, you spend your life with the shallow breaths, and just to get the breath in. And like you said, opening the whole thing up, having your feet grounded and feeling it right from the bottom and opening up. It's powerful. It is absolutely powerful. And I lost my train of thought, but I was just trying to, I'm picturing it, and I'm picturing it with some of the people that I do it with, and you can practice it. Like you said, if you're getting ready to go into a situation, it doesn't have to be automatically reactive, but do it before you go into that meeting. Do it before you go in. It's like getting called to the principal's office. Be ready.
Be ready, and be ready, and also have language. I'm big on language. Language is important. And I worked with somebody literally this week. She works in an HR, and she's got a lot of crap going on. She's really trying to build her confidence. We worked on the body, but we also worked on some sentences, right? Some stem sentences. So you have something ready to say, right? I am concerned about X, right? So you have the body, but then you have this confident, powerful, short sentence, right? Instead of fumbling around and not sure, and again, eyes down, right? Because you're fumbling, right? Because you're a little nervous. So have some pre-prepped little sentence starters, right? Be okay with saying, I don't like that, or that's not quite what I was thinking. It's more like this, especially when you're working with somebody who you feel like has a lot of power over you, or has been, I don't know, a little toxic, and, people that interrupt constantly, right? The people like that, where you really have to kind of like get strong and get powerful and kind of hold your own voice. I think that those things are really powerful too.
Right. Because that shame also comes, and, like you said, it stems way back, and it stems from that feeling of you heard all this when you were younger. If you had lived in a toxic or dysfunctional situation, you heard it. And so now you're just reaffirming it over and over to yourself. So it's now even proving it's not even what you think. It's, oh, they must be right. All those people that said that must be 100% right. And that's hard to overcome. I mean, that's hard to get over that, because it becomes, it's kind of like the difference between guilt and shame. You do something wrong, you should feel a little guilty. But shame is you just feel like you're bad.
You're bad.
You're bad. And I sum it up by just saying it's the not enoughs. I'm not smart enough, funny enough, good enough, happy enough. Whatever it is, you're just not good enough. And that is why you tend to slump or tend to look down, because you just don't have that confidence. So give us a couple other, like something else you might do with your clients to maybe help them build that up with that inner, let's talk about that when they hear that voice and they become aware of that voice.
Yeah, yeah. So again, I'm going to bring up somebody I met with this week again. This is a male, and he was really struggling with a situation with a boss, and it was bringing up a lot of his own shame. And again, don't remember that people are largely unconscious, right? That's why therapy, getting into the therapy office is so important. So you can say, oh, I had this situation, and then they had this reaction, and then we can dig in and say, okay, put the guy aside. What is this about for you, right? Because if you're having a strong reaction to something, that's actually your stuff, right? And it's your responsibility to kind of dig in. So anyway, we looked at the thoughts. We if you can imagine, right? We looked at the thoughts, a wheel maybe. We looked at the thoughts. We looked at the beliefs. We looked at the stories, right? What are the thoughts telling you? Right. And then we could get really down into the nitty gritty of how did you learn that? How did you learn that this, and this? And then, he was pretty entrenched in this cycle, right? He really believed what he was thinking. He really had a hard time seeing a different perspective. But by the time of the end of the meeting, he was able to look at the evidence. What is the evidence that you're thinking, this guy doesn't like me and, I'm not good enough? What's really the evidence today, here and now in 2024? What is the evidence, right? And then he was able to, well, I'm education, I'm an expert in this, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay. And then we can build the evidence, and then we were able to help him actually build a visual image of something different, right? So he could sit with this boss guy, he could have the interaction, and then instead of it, because the boss isn't in therapy, he's not going to change, right? So instead of the client like internalizing and getting to that shame response, we were able to kind of like short circuit it, right? So he could see that, oh gosh, this is about him. This guy has some need for some power. This guy has some need for control. This guy hasn't done his work. This isn't about me. This is about him. Screw him kind of thing. Excuse my French, but
no, you're good.
That was a game changer for him. A game changer for him, right? A game changer, right? And this man has struggled, dysfunctional childhood, chronic alcoholism, blah, 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 blah. He's in recovery now, doing great. But this is the work he's doing now. And it's so valuable and so important.
It's huge. And you just have to, challenge it. And like you said, we're making these things up based on our subconscious beliefs. So when somebody raises an eyebrow at you, instead of saying, oh, they must have an itch on their eyebrow, you're thinking, oh, they must have done something wrong. And you immediately start this whole story. So I always tell people, if you can't see it, like if it wasn't physically or hear it, if they didn't say you're doing your job wrong, then give it a different meaning. If you didn't see it, if it doesn't have a sense and it's not something tangible, then like you said, question it and just look at the actual facts that you're seeing, and be pretty honest with yourself, because
you gotta be.
Absolutely. You definitely do. And then I kind of joke, because it's like, okay, well, if you're making up these stories anyway, like you said, if somebody's eyebrow goes up and you automatically are thinking, oh, it must be me, he must not like me. And then you can just get yourself to be aware that you're making up the story. Then you might as well make up a different story.
That's right. That's right. Right. I love that, because, thought, like I talked about, thoughts are not facts and thoughts are not neutral, right? If you're having all these negative thoughts with awareness, you can choose the opposite, literally, right? If you're thinking every day, my life sucks, my life sucks, my life sucks. Okay. Now you've got the awareness, just choose the opposite. I make it sound so simple, and it isn't. And I really want to honor that, but sometimes it can be that simple, right? With that kind of awareness.
Absolutely. And like you said, for that gentleman, that was a life shifting, just piece of something that was so simple. That's why these podcasts, if you just say, get one golden nugget out of something, that will change how he goes through his life for the rest of his life.
And this is a big deal for him, because this guy, I'm not going to go into detail, but he's got a lot of shame, lot of shame for childhood that he's working through now. But this is going to be a game changer for him. And you could see it again, back to the body. We were able to then work with the body, with a new belief, with a new story. And he walked out of there 2 feet taller, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
could see it on him, right? You could literally feel it and see it on him. It was just lovely. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Very
what a way to change the physical ailments now, because now, you talk about the mental, you have to deal with the body, the mind, and the spirit. You have to obviously deal with all of them. But yeah, we can fix the mind, but then you still have to check. Is there a
Mhm.
check that you would suggest to see if it's still in your body? Like if something, a question you could ask yourself to, if you've dealt, like say a certain situation or a mindset,
Yeah.
some block you have.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just using an example from my life, right? I used to have some anxiety around actually about traveling, right? Just saying actually to my husband, well, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be done this. I'm going to be backpacking or whatever. I used to get this funky little swirl in the stomach, kind of like dread, kind of like anxiety, like there was going to be some disapproval or something. And that was my stuff. That wasn't him, right? That was totally my stuff. So work through it. But now and again, when I've got a trip planned or whatever, I sometimes I'll get a little flush of that, and I will acknowledge it, right? I mean, you have to feel the feeling. So if I'm feeling a little bit of a flutter in my stomach, and I'll just like take a breath. Okay, what is this about for me, right? That's the first question I ask myself, right? Close my eyes. Okay, I'm noticing this. What is this about for me, right? And then I just wait for an answer to come up, and then then I can look at the evidence. Is this really true? Is this current today? Is this really a thing today, or is this old stuff coming up, right? And once you can kind of, again, it's this self-awareness, right? Once you can kind of discern what's what, then you have so many more choices,
Absolutely.
and then you can verbalize. You can say, I've got this trip plan. I'm a little cautious about telling you this. I don't know why, but I've got this trip plan. I want to do this and that. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever. We'll go have fun, right? Not a big deal. Again, it's my stuff. But for years, I put that on him,
Right.
right? In a
Yeah.
relationship for a long time, I had this story about he's this and he's that and he's the other around this traveling stuff, but it wasn't true. It was my stuff. So I
Right.
just want people, and that has been a game changer, right? That's been a game changer. That my self-awareness has helped our relationship, our communication, and I've been married, I don't know, a terrible time, 27 years, 25 years, 30 years. I don't know, long time.
A long
Same
time.
person. Long time, the same person, but we're still learning and growing and working through things, right? It just
Yep.
doesn't end. It doesn't
And
end.
and that is a great point to bring up to people too, because when you grew up in that kind of dysfunction and where you were never right and you were never doing anything, you stopped trusting your own instinct. So you started catastrophizing too. You're looking at everything as worst case scenario, worst case scenario. And that's why, it's why it's so important that we take a moment, like you said, is it happening right now? Or did it happen? And is it because of the past? But even also just as important is, are we thinking it's going to happen in the future? Because we tend to catastrophize if we grew up like that, waiting for the next shoe to drop or whatever the expression is. You're waiting for something, the crap to hit the
Yeah.
fan. So you
Yes.
automatically assume the worst. But that is a good point that you brought up, because if you can get into that habit of being aware and then communicating it with someone else, you will get
Mm-hmm.
reaffirmed and you will get shown that it's not always the end of the world. And some
Yeah,
people have a
that's
hard time getting to that point.
yeah, that's true. That's right. That's right. Yes, you're right.
Because I know I
Yeah.
did. I just assumed that everything, oh, and even the comments you say to yourself, like, oh, this is great, but it's not going to last. You have to start
Mm-hmm.
being super aware of those comments, because
Mm-hmm.
you're literally trying to predict a future that 99% of the time is
Yeah.
not going to be correct.
Yeah. 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 And that's a lot of my work, right? Is all about really trying to live intentionally, really trying to live in the here and now, right? We're not stuck in the past, and we're not trying to kind of forecast the future and again, like you said, it's usually the worst case scenario. We're not thinking, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to win the lottery, right? Oh my gosh, my car's going to break down, or am I going to miss my flight, or whatever it happens to be, right? So
Right.
really learning to live kind of intentionally, kind of in the moment, as much as we can, begin to catch this thinking, right? Catch what's happening in the body, catch our feelings.
Right. Because if you catch it and you become aware of it, then you can change it. You can stop and you can be like, Tammy, what is happening that you would think this? Like, why would you even think this? And question yourself
Yeah.
and don't beat yourself up. I mean, I love that you said the curious part of you, and I love that word. Just
Yeah,
look at life with curiosity, but also compassion and self-compassion because
definitely.
it's a vicious cycle. If you, even when you
Definitely.
become aware, and you'll learn that when you start becoming aware, it still perpetuates the cycle of beating yourself
Mhm.
up because you're like, oh, I'm doing this because of that. Well, gosh, I'm so dumb and blah, blah, blah. Then you have to deal with
Mhm.
those things.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's a great point. I do want listeners to hear that this doesn't work 100% of the time. Maybe in the beginning, it might be 5% of the time, right? If you can catch it 5% and then you grow, it's like a muscle. You have to do the reps, right? When you go into the gym, you don't start with 100-pound rep weights, right? You build up, right? So this is the same thing. You build up as you build your awareness and you build your, you know, figuring out what's your body and the thoughts and the stories, right? You build up and then you've got, it's slow. In trauma work, we say less is more and slower is faster. And it's
Yeah.
never going to be perfect.
Nope.
Never,
And
never.
I,
So just
and,
give yourself some grace.
and very good point with the muscle memory, because that's why I instill in so many people the habit of gratitude, because it takes a while to learn that, to be grateful for everything, wake up in the morning and be grateful for 5 things. And then
Mm,
that will start to quickly become, something bad will happen that you would normally have thought was horrible, and you'll be grateful for the good in it. And if you can train your mind to start, like
yeah.
you get cut off and somebody almost hits you, be grateful that you're not in a big hurry and you just let them go and it was no big deal. And your brain starts to think like that pretty quickly,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. Yeah. So much fun. So it's fun. It can be fun. It can be hard. Trust me. It can be
Mhm.
hard. It can be painful, but the benefits, right? The payoff is huge. Really huge.
So what was your like, I know you're a therapist and you've been doing this a long time and you went to school. What was your aha moment that you went, okay, my life was not normal. I've got to do something. Did you have one of those?
I don't know. I had many aha moments. I mean, really, the life. My. I don't know, I'm not going to go into it, but there was a lot of chaos in early childhood. A lot of scarcity, chaos. I left home at 16, and just really had to kind of fend for myself. And in that time, I was really survival, right? It's just all about survival. I wasn't conscious. I wasn't aware. I was angry. I was just a mess. That's why it said my 20s were a train wreck, basically. Right. And I think, honestly, I think it was after the autoimmune disease, right? After I woke up one morning and literally couldn't freaking move. I had an aggressive case of rheumatoid arthritis. That for me was like, I was married, I had a small child, I was in grad school, I hadn't dealt with any of my stuff. I was eating I was eating junk, processed food, ton of sugar, blah, 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 right? Self-medicating, probably too much alcohol and all the rest of it. And my body gave me that wake-up call.
Okay.
Right. And it was that journey, the journey through the RA, where I remember walking out of that rheumatologist's office and I thought, can I use the F word?
Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
like, I'm going to be the freaking poster child for rheumatoid arthritis. I am not going to let this beat me. Right. So in that moment, in that flash, I feel it today. In that flash, I was like, okay, I've got to get my shit together. I've got to make some changes. I've got to, so I've started with the food, with then the movement, and then was able to kind of complete remission. I don't know, 5-6 years afterwards, complete remission, touch wood, no medication, anything like that. But I've really cleaned up my act, food, the mental health, the spiritual health, the physical health. And that probably was a massive, massive pivotal point.
Well, that's amazing just to stand here and be able to say that, because I know people with rheumatoid arthritis, like massive arthritis, and it's all inflammation, and people don't understand that inflammation doesn't have to be a physical attribution. There could be a mental or a stress that you can still have
Yeah.
inflammation. And I tell people all the time, you can fix that. Like you can fix that naturally. You do not have to be drug dependent forever. Like start dealing
Mhm.
with all of it. But like you said, all of it, not just the
Mhm.
symptoms, because
Mhm.
it's still in there. Rheumatoid arthritis, I think, is, and arthritis in general is a big one. And like the lupus, so many
Mhm.
people,
Yep.
you look at lupus and fibromyalgia and all those
Yes.
that kind of all tied in, eating disorders, Crohn's disease,
Yes.
all of that.
Yep.
It's all of the
Yep.
same, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, when I have a client come in for the first time, we look at all of that. Do you have GI stuff, right? Is there autoimmune? Are you getting headaches, migraines? Is there a Crohn's history? I can't tell you how many people have fibromyalgia, right? And it's all, maybe not all, 90% we can tie it back to child unresolved kind of childhood
Yep.
trauma. And that's just not my opinion. Right now we've got research and studies and science that really support that too, right? So we're learning so much more about the human condition and the human system, and how much trauma does affect our physical health.
Yep.
And our mental health. We can't separate them out. We're a
No.
one thing. We're systems, multiple systems in this amazing body. We have to work with them all.
Yep. Body, mind, and spirit. It's just absolutely.
Yes.
So what,
Yeah.
if you had to recommend a book for someone, what would it be? If that to read about something, what's one of your favorite books?
Yeah, so I do love The Body Keeps Score. I
Yeah.
recommend that often. I've read it several times. I recommend that often for clients. So that's probably one of my favorite. And I love work. I love reading about mindfulness meditation. I've just read Seat of the Soul. I don't know if you've read that, but oh
Mm-mm.
my gosh, that is a beautiful book. I love that. Definitely more on the mindfulness spiritual side, but the Seat of the Soul,
Writing
yeah,
that
that
down.
really touched me as well. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but I love that. So Body Keeps Score for learning about the body and the trauma and how it affects. And again, that book has been a favorite. It's been out for a long time. And then The Seat of the Soul more recently for the spiritual
I'm gonna
journey,
have
I
to.
guess.
I asked that because I
Yeah,
always need books. I
yeah,
always need a list of
yeah.
books. So I'm like, let me ask that one. And a lot of the times the body keeps score. When I read that too, it put a lot of, like you said, science behind it. So that helped drop some of that shame too, because
Mhm,
now you could go,
mhm,
oh, it's really not my fault. Oh, it's not, because nothing drives me more crazy than when you hear something and they say, oh, well, I have this, but the doctor just says it's all in my mind. And then
oh
there
my
goes the guilt, and that just,
God, horrible.
so then you have to be like, oh, there's something wrong with me that gave myself this disease. And that's just adds one more thing. So I love,
Yes.
like, even, I always tell that story to, when we talk about like generational trauma and stuff. Well, I always tell that story to people about the rats and the cherry blossom with the
I
scent.
don't know that story.
Oh, well, they gave rats, they like let them in, they let them smell like cherry blossom scent, and then they zapped their feet, the bottom of their feet.
Ah,
And so they shocked, So eventually it's kind of like Pavlov's conditioning. And then eventually they didn't have to zap their feet. They would just smell the cherry blossom and they would scurry and run like their feet were getting zapped. And
mm,
2 generations later, those baby rats, 2 generations later, all you had to do was brand new baby, let them smell cherry blossom, and they would get all frazzled and their feet would scurry. So it's like, that was like such a, I mean, that just shows you how the trauma gets stored in your DNA.
yeah,
So people
yeah.
that are like, have this, it's my fault, I should have done something better, I should break the cycle. No, it gives them a little more scientific background to say, and
Mhm,
it's just another way for people to just give themselves a little more grace.
mhm. Yes, yeah. And anything you can do, right, to get out of that, that again, that shame mindset, right? What's wrong with me? I'm not enough. I can't do this right. Blah blah blah. Right. So yeah, it does put a lot of the science behind that. It's a
Yeah.
great book.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Absolutely. So tell us about a little bit about your books. And I know you have something new coming out with that I will put in the links. It should be out before your episode airs. So tell us about your little projects.
Yeah, so I've got Never Too Late, which is my first book, and it is about inspiration and support, and kind of later in life athletes, right? Because I'm 60, I still love to get out there, run, hike, backpack. So that's all about that. The You Are Limitless book is really a book that's close to my heart. It tells more about my personal story, and it really is about 7 inspirational stories for hope and healing. So it does cover things like anxiety, addiction, trauma, and how various people have actually used nature as part of their healing journey. And then it has kind of some like a kind of a self-help component in the back as well. So that's one of my favorite books. And then the little pocket guide that I've just kind of revamped is called From Panic to Peace. And that is in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. And it really is, it's a free pocket guide, and it really helps talk about some of this nervous system stuff. It's got 12 techniques to help kind of calm the nervous system, help with anxiety. And there's also some links and resources in there too. So that is a freebie, right? So no excuses to get on there, get that book, and start to get some help.
I love that because that's what people need. They need
Yeah.
checklists. I have a friend that she actually is a grief coach, and she talks about when her husband died, nobody gave her a checklist. And it just seems like if people have an action guide or a checklist or 12 simple steps, or, people need to, because you don't know what you don't know. And
right.
that's why these things are so important to have more people out there talking, because like I said, if you get one thing, but wouldn't it be nice for someone to just go, okay, you got anxiety, check these 12 things.
That's right. Just go do, there's 12 techniques. I'm sure out of the 12 techniques, 3 will work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Try them all, take 3 and just go and use them. Right? And that's why I love your show, right? Because it's got information, right? You're helping people through information, but then information is great, but you've got to have the actionable steps, right? You've got to have the next step is the how to. What can I do? People ask me, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Right? And I mean, some of them are pretty simple. Some of them, most of the stuff is no cost, right? Breath, movement, hydration, quality sleep, support, most of it is no cost. Yeah, which is huge.
It's huge. And then people just have to do it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. That's why we have the support groups, and we have, you say, get with somebody, a coach, a therapist, whatever it is, get with somebody that's going to hold you accountable, because until you have the belief that you're worth the change and you're worth the happiness and you're worth the effort, you won't put it in. So
that's a great
kind of like that. It all comes together.
That's a great point. Sad, heartbreaking, right? That people are still holding that belief, right? They're not that they are unworthy. That's really heartbreaking.
It is.
So if you're feeling that and you're out there and this is resonating with you, I hear you. Just reach out, Tammy. Reach out to Tammy. Reach out to me. There's help. Take the first step. You're not alone. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kate, this has been absolutely wonderful. If somebody wants, I know we're going to put the links in the show notes so they can find you, but what's the quickest, easiest, best way to get hold of whatever you offer?
Yeah. So everything's on the website. So katechampionauthor.com. Books, podcasts, contact forms. It's all right there. Super simple.
Sounds great. And and you'll have the link to your new little pocket guide, right? In the show notes?
Yes. It will be in the show notes, and it'll be on the website too.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay. And then last question, and I love this because I love the information. Like I said, this is the second one we've done together, and I feel like I could talk to you all day long. But if you had to leave the listeners with one piece of advice or some words of wisdom from Kate Champion, what would it be?
It would be, it's really never too late. It is never too late. I mean, it's never too late to deal with your crap. It's never too late to get more support. It's never too late to take that walk or, reach some of those dreams that you have. I just really want people to know that you are not limited, right? It is never too late, and just go for it. Just go for it.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely. And I say that it just is. It's never too early and it's never too late. So all you need to know is that you're worth it, and you deserve it. You deserve happiness for sure.
Yeah. Get some support. I really am a believer in support. Find the right people, find your community, find the like-minded. It doesn't have to be in person, right? It can be online. Just find the support, and then just take some baby steps.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for coming on. This was super fun, as always.
You are so welcome. I love you. And I just so appreciate all the work you're doing. And I can't wait to connect again.
Oh, you as well. And for everybody out there listening, you heard it. You're worth it. It might seem hard, but the steps are simple. Just find someone like Kate to walk you through and you're gonna be fine. Have a great day
Yes.
and we'll
Yeah.
see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.